If you've been listening to Making the Brand for a while, you know it's a fusion of boy bands, social media, and marketing. And one of my favorite collisions of these topics is Justin Timberlake's cameo in the 2010 film The Social Network. As you probably know, JT played Napster's co-founder and Facebook executive Sean Parker, and he famously delivered the line, "Drop the, just Facebook. It's cleaner." It's hard to remember a time when it was the Facebook, and today we're talking about a social network that is even older than Facebook, LinkedIn. LinkedIn is actually the OG of social platforms. More on that in a bit with today's guest, Joe Ray, who not only landed his current job thanks to a LinkedIn connection, but he has a ton of tips about how to make the most of this platform. But first, today's episode is sponsored by the University of Florida College of Journalism and Communications Online. For those of you who don't know, I teach in this program. Our online graduate programs offer 8 concentrations and 4 certificates, from social media to public relations, digital strategy, web design, and more. And with a flexible online program designed for busy professionals, you can move at your own pace. Plus, as a top 5 public university, you can be confident in the quality of education you'll receive. Enroll now and take the next step in your career, and maybe I'll see you in class. Welcome to Making the Brand, the podcast where marketing and pop culture collide. I'm your host, Brianne Fleming. I can't wait to chat about brands, boy bands, and everything in between, because brands who have a pulse on pop culture can create adoring fans of their own. Welcome back to the Making the Brand podcast. Today, I have my friend Joe Ray with us. He works in marketing in the tech industry. And Joe, I don't know if you know this, but we're celebrating something this week.
Really?
Yes. This week, just coincidentally, is actually the 20-year anniversary of LinkedIn, May 5th, 2003. So 2 decades, I think it's about time we shed some light on LinkedIn and show it some love. I know you've had some really great experiences with it that you wanted to touch on. So welcome to the show. I'm excited to get into this today.
Yeah, looking forward to it. Really enjoyed getting into Pop Chat, like kind of during COVID times. And LinkedIn, I've kind of started segueing back there a little bit with the new job that I started last year. But yeah, it's been great to be part of the Pop Chat community and great to be on the podcast now.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I've been splitting my time with Twitter and LinkedIn. Even I tweeted a couple months ago, I was like, I don't know what's happening, but I'm having fun on LinkedIn. And it seems like you are too. So we'll get into that. But yeah, I just couldn't believe it. LinkedIn really is the OG of social media platforms, actually. I mean, pre-Facebook, pre-MySpace even. I read that MySpace didn't come out until August of 2003. So yeah, 20 years. So most of us millennials started out on MySpace, but these days we've got real jobs, we've got real networking to do, real careers. So that's where LinkedIn comes into play. So what might be some misconceptions people have about LinkedIn going into it?
Yeah, I think a lot of misconceptions have come up just partially because it's been around for so long and its purpose has changed really over time. You know, a lot of people kind of, especially in that millennial age range, know LinkedIn as like a digital resume basically and using it to apply for jobs. And so really have that professional impression of LinkedIn. And that's starting to go away a little bit, that it's realizing, you know, from Twitter, from Instagram, from TikTok, like people are coming to social both for education and entertainment. And I think LinkedIn's really doing a good job of leaning into that. So that's kind of changing the perception from where it's been maybe the last 10 years just to really even over the last year or two, I think has been a lot of change in terms of just moving away from that professional only, you know, education, like reading about current events and stuff like that. It's almost becoming another platform for creators too. A lot of people who, you know, have started creating on Twitter and Instagram are starting to realize, hey, LinkedIn's got a lot of great organic reach to give away.
Yes.
It's an audience that wants to really is hungry for entertaining content, but there's not as much on there as other platforms. So it's really changing the perception of LinkedIn for the better.
Yeah. And I think we've also noticed that since the COVID era, I mean, everyone's working from home. Some people are still working from home. And it's really started to shift into this more forgiving, kind of come as you are type of platform. We're all just out here doing our best. We've got our dogs on our Zoom calls. We've got a baby crying in the background. Like people are just, I think, breaking down that perception that to be professional means that you can't be human. It has to be rigid. So it's been really great to see that come through on LinkedIn.
Mhm.
I'd love to know more about you and your job and
Yeah,
what have been your personal experiences on LinkedIn. I know you've started a new job somewhat recently. Did you just hit your 1 year anniversary? Is
I
time
did. I
flying?
did. I did. Yeah. Yeah. We're in May now. April 5th was my 1 year anniversary. So
Yeah.
coming into the tech space where I worked for a tech recruiting and managed services company as their marketing lead, that's really brought me back into LinkedIn a lot. I spent 3 years doing marketing for a private school in Buffalo, New York. So that was really Facebook, Instagram heavy, didn't spend a ton of time on LinkedIn. Prior to that, I spent a good portion of my career in the sports industry. So that was super Twitter heavy. Again, really was on LinkedIn, but not really posting content, spending a lot of time there. So it's really been exciting too, because a lot of the connections I've built on LinkedIn are from my city, like from Buffalo, New York, like people who are in marketing or who are in the different industries that I've worked in. Whereas other places like Facebook, Instagram are strictly like for my friends and family. Twitter, like really kind of got like a lot of national marketing audience and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So LinkedIn really like fills a unique place for me in terms of who I'm talking to, who I'm connecting with every day and things like that.
Yeah, that's interesting. Have you had to do anything specific to try to gain a really localized reach like that? Or were you strategic about that in any way? Is it based on who you're connected to and kind of getting, recommendations based on those types of people?
Yeah, I think definitely just in terms of, becoming connected to the people I've worked with on LinkedIn, I start to see who they're connected to and grow that way. LinkedIn, when you're trying to add new connections as well, there's just so much opportunity to kind of sort on different filters based on job titles or industries or specific companies or geographies. Makes it really easy to build a network wherever and in whatever industry you want to. And then you can really, you can personalize your invites and like write a message to someone and say specifically why you're connecting with them, as opposed to, oh, just Twitter or Instagram, you're throwing out a follow request and you hope that they see that. You can actually write a little bit of a message to someone of saying, hey, I'm trying to connect with more alumni from my school in the marketing industry. I'd love to connect with you to learn more. There's a little more personality to it. And I think that's really where LinkedIn shines, is like that overlap between the personal and the professional, that we're seeing that really all across social media. But LinkedIn's always been that way a little bit. So it's like a really good time for LinkedIn to be having a comeback and for people to be getting on LinkedIn from that perspective too.
Yeah, you're right. It really is. I mean, I can't think of another platform really that has that personal greeting where you can explain why you want to connect or look for those, things you may have in common that you can connect on. And it just blows my mind how many people skip that part and they'll just blindly send those invitations. Like if you have a reason to connect or you have something in common that you want to share, like break the ice, start off that relationship. And even if it's someone that you admire that maybe you want to connect with. They don't know you from Adam, but you just really want to compliment them and network with them. Don't just send that request. Be genuine and personalize it. It's a huge opportunity.
Exactly. How many times do we hear like you have to be social on social media? And like that's the
Mhm.
perfect opportunity to be doing that. So
Yeah, exactly. And we've seen it time and time again, just even applying for jobs and doing cold outreach. I mean, you could have a lot of success if you're just sincere, you're genuine, and you just express what you're looking for in that way. You'd be surprised how many people are willing to help you or willing to put in a good word or pass along your application or whatnot. So
yeah,
yeah.
and actually if I can interject with a quick story too, like that's really
Yeah.
how I found my current job of a high school friend of mine, actually, who we went to college together, kind of stayed in touch throughout our careers. We were always connected on LinkedIn. So I saw her career moves and where she was going. My current boss, the CEO of my company, we were connected on LinkedIn for like 3 years before I ever met or had a call with him. just from being mutual alumni of Niagara University who worked in marketing.
Hmm.
So I already had those relationships there. And then when the time came to be like, hey, you know, I want to work in marketing for your company and have that conversation, like there was already how long, 3, 4 years of a relationship there
Yeah,
that made a real big difference for me in that search.
for sure. Yeah. I mean, you're living proof of it. So why would you say LinkedIn has been a platform that you've been prioritizing? What have you gained from it aside from that amazing opportunity? But as far as what you've been posting and the relationships that you've been creating and fostering, what has been the big takeaway for you?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is that LinkedIn's become a platform that's really opened up to more conversations that I guess I'm going to say are paraprofessional, like kind of connected to your work life, but not specifically about, hey, I just did this at my job. Here's how we did it. And those kind of conversations. May is also Mental Health Awareness Month. So we're recording this on May 1st. Like today, I had a post about, hey, here's 3 things I've learned through my journey, having anxiety disorders and things like that. Like I think there's still a place on LinkedIn for things like that too, and sharing tips and things like that can help people bring their best selves to work. So I've really enjoyed LinkedIn from that perspective too. And judging by the engagement and comments back, like people are enjoying seeing that type of content there too. We know Twitter is a place where, people share their whole lives and things like that in varying degrees of personal and professional and things like that. And I think LinkedIn as a whole is starting to take some cues from that as well, which is beneficial as people start to think, hey, is Twitter a place I want to necessarily be continuing to be on, or am I running to Mastodon, Blue Sky, whatever other Twitter alternatives? Well, maybe you should check out LinkedIn too.
Yeah, I mean it's established. It's got 20 years under its belt. It has an audience and yeah, it's right there waiting for you. And I think a post like that and talking about mental health or just other things going on in our personal lives, I mean it goes to show you that we're a lot more than just our jobs. We're ready to learn more about our peers, about our colleagues, and that's going to help just deepen that relationship. And I'm sure there are a ton of benefits there as well when you feel like you really know who you're working with and you can connect with them on a deeper level and just understand them more.
Yeah, there really is. And that's a huge part of our work too. When we're in the recruiting industry, it's all about building relationships over time and being top of mind that when somebody has a position that they need some help hiring for, that we want them to think of us. We want them to know that we're trustworthy people, but we want them to know us as humans as well. And LinkedIn's becoming a channel where we can do that really well.
Yeah, absolutely. So people and brands, really, we have so many options as far as what social platforms we should be on, what we should prioritize. Do we have to be everywhere? Do we have to be in all of these places? It can be kind of exhausting. So, in your opinion, who is LinkedIn perfect for? What kinds of brands, what kind of individuals, what kind of goals do you have to really realize that LinkedIn is right for you?
Yeah, I mean, if you're trying to build an audience or sell to an audience that's anything business to business, you're going to be on LinkedIn. I think most of those people are already there and understanding the value of the platform. We're starting to see a lot of people who are online content creators kind of around, again, those like para-professional topics like kind of self-improvement and things like that. We're starting to see a ton of people translate Twitter threads into LinkedIn carousels and
Yes.
just kind of take screenshots of tweets and take them into LinkedIn. And
Guilty.
they're seeing the same type of success on LinkedIn that they are on Twitter. For anybody else who's a job seeker and is trying to showcase their expertise and get noticed by employers or get noticed by recruiters, LinkedIn's a place where you can kind of add that context and kind of show that combination of what makes you you from the personal standpoint or the professional standpoint. There's a ton of room for people to grow on LinkedIn. And the really great thing too is that the organic reach on LinkedIn is crazy compared to Twitter or Instagram or all these other places that we're, looking at the algorithms and being like, hey, this isn't working for us. LinkedIn, you post once on there and you could be getting engagements for 3 days, 5 days. I've even got engagements on posts like a week and a half after they get posted. It's really for anybody who wants to showcase that personal professional mix and find somewhere where they know their content's going to get seen.
Yeah, and I know LinkedIn is really great at serving your content in the feeds of other people. Like if someone comments on your post or if you comment on someone else's post, like it just kind of balloons and gets you in front of the right audience that's related to that content. So that is certainly appreciated. You mentioned that LinkedIn is so great for attracting recruiters or if you're a job seeker. And I think when you're in that position, there are a lot of times when imposter syndrome can kick in, especially if you've been at this for a while, or maybe you're feeling kind of uninspired, or maybe you're switching careers or you're entry level and you just think, I'm not an executive or I'm not this, I'm not that. I don't have anything valuable to bring to LinkedIn. This is really for top dogs, big executives and those types of voices. What value do I have to add as someone in this position or someone who's an intern, for example? So, what would you say to someone who is either new in their role or just new to LinkedIn and may question what they should be publishing or if there's any value that they have to share?
Yeah, and I think that's a great point. And to your point about kind of, what do I have to share? If you're just starting on a platform, you're probably not going to come in, posting multiple times a day and sharing your expertise and things and just shouting into the void. You're going to want to come in and start kind of getting a sense of the platform, starting to build some relationships on the platform, make some connections, find the people who are going to engage with your content. And LinkedIn, I think, is designed as a place where you can do that effectively. The way that the algorithm and the feed works, your comments on other posts like get really great visibility compared to even making your own posts too. Like your connections can still see the kinds of content you're interacting with, the kinds of questions you're asking. And the comments are also a great place to make connections too. Finding people who are like-minded to you on common topics, finding people who might be, professional or potential employers that you might want to connect with as well. Start commenting on some of their posts as well.
Yeah.
That's a really easy way to come in and like really like feel like you have the experience of a platform before you start posting your own content and go from there. And even as you start getting going on the platform too, there's really no pressure to be posting every day. I think LinkedIn, I love it too, because for me, it's a platform where it's not like Twitter, I think, where you have to be always online and whatnot if you really want to grow an audience and a following and a brand and things like that.
Yeah.
It's really a place where you can come on and, post once every other day and, comment on 3 to 5 posts that are meaningful to you. And you'll build a really strong presence and be standing out above 99% of the other people who are on there. So it's really a place that's like an easy access point to come into social media, like in a professional sense,
Mm-hmm.
and, makes it really easy to get started.
Yeah, I'd love to expand on that. You brought up a great point just about the kind of low barrier to engagement on LinkedIn, as I like to call it. And that's one of the reasons I love LinkedIn is because if I think about how to post on TikTok, I have to edit a video, I have to film a video, or on Instagram, I have to make something all the time. LinkedIn, I mean, it could just be a text post, it could be a photo, it could be a video, it could be a carousel or a PDF even, but
Mm-hmm.
you can get started and even links. I mean, commenting on articles or industry news, even if you didn't write it, that's okay. You have a point of view on it that you can share after you read it and shed light and show people how you think. So, what types of formats have you been experimenting with on LinkedIn, or what have you seen has performed really well?
Yeah, thanks. We've played around a lot with kind of, a text post versus a post with a link preview versus a single photo or a gallery of photos versus, oh, are you sharing a link in the comments or in the text of the caption with a bunch of photos or a video? And really, I think there's not as much impact on the link sharing as people think.
Mm-hmm.
I think people want to see faces. Again, tying the personal to the professional, we've seen a lot of cases where people want to see the faces of our team members, or like for myself on my personal page, like if I'm taking a selfie outside of an event or stuff like that. I think that plays a factor as well. I really haven't gotten into carousels yet, mostly just because I'm a writer and not a design pro and haven't gone into Canva or Photoshop and set up a template for carousels yet.
Mm-hmm.
But seeing those are getting massive engagement all over the place, both as feed posts and as lead gen too. Like you can make a carousel and kind of show the first 2 or 3 slides and then have people fill in their LinkedIn information to get the rest of the carousel and the information in there. Video plays well everywhere, and, LinkedIn's no different. There's lots of, especially in like B2B SaaS space, there's a lot of people who are using video as a way to entertain and building really good brand awareness through that. So, really you can run the whole gamut. But going back to the imposter syndrome point too, you can come in with link previews and texts and really start, without any creative heavy lift and make effective content.
Yeah, and just start finding your voice slowly. And I love that you brought up that people want to see faces, because that was something I was going to commend you on, is that, I went through some of your recent posts, and you're right. You show yourself, you show your face, you have people get to know you. I know more about you and your backstory and how you used to play the tuba. Maybe you still do play the tuba. I know all those things because I see it, and you have pictures to complement that. And it just makes such a difference to see faces. In fact, if I may, I would like to recommend this book. It's called About Face by Dan Hill, and it's all about incorporating faces and emotion in advertising. And it is a really good read, but you do that exceptionally well.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm going to have to check that out. I need some new books to add to my stack of books that I mean to read, and they're sitting on my bookshelf. So But no, that's an interesting topic, and it's just one of those inherent truths about social media that feels right. Like if you have something that showcases your personality, you should share it. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think you've proven that LinkedIn isn't as stuffy as people may think it is. I think they can let their hair down a little bit, feel free to get personal, and not only is it fine, it's actually more effective content. Would you kind of agree with that?
I would. Yeah. I think it was about a year and a half ago that LinkedIn added a laughing reaction emoji. And that definitely opened the door to a lot more like corporate relational memes and videos and things like that, which naturally leads to people letting their hair down a little more in a sense. I think there's just a real range of content that comes out there because LinkedIn has the availability for people to react with a like or a celebrate or a heart or a light bulb for saying something's insightful, or that laugh emoji, or like the support emoji holding out a heart to say you care about a cause or community service or things like that. Just the way that they've set up their engagement structure opens the door to a lot of different types of content. Yeah.
Yeah. I wish more platforms would follow suit and give us a little more organic reach. Just give us what we want.
Yeah.
We'll be on the platform.
People want to react differently.
Yeah. Yes. That's an interesting point though. I forgot that they introduced the laughing emoji. There's a whole array of them at the bottom there now that you could choose from.
I try to use the laugh emoji at least once a day just for good health and finding funny content.
Yeah, I'm going to have to start using it. I just default to a like, but yeah, you're right. It just livens up the content a little bit more.
Yeah.
So we've touched on a few things, but what would you say are the big advantages of LinkedIn? And is there anything that you think it does better than some of the other platforms out there? I mean, it's easy to always look at the shiny new object, the shiny new post or platform that we should be on, but that could also be overwhelming. Maybe there are things about LinkedIn that are already working well and we can just stay put and not have to always worry about all these other things. So what's working well on LinkedIn already?
Yeah. We talked about the organic reach a little bit earlier, and I think what that creates is an environment where you don't have to be always online. And social media managers, in different communities and Twitter and stuff like that are always talking about, hey, we need to set some boundaries and not have to be always on our phones and things like that. And in terms of building a professional brand and a personal brand and things like that, LinkedIn's a very low lift that you don't have to be always on, and you can set those boundaries. And people who are going on the weekends are generally catching up on content from during the week. So it's not like you have to be posting tons of stuff on Saturdays and Sundays if you don't want to. There's really just so much opportunity there. We talked about the personal and professional a lot, and I think that blend is really helping LinkedIn shine as well. And all that said, it's still a place too where cultural moments still resonate, which is part of what made Twitter so special. But LinkedIn also really taps into a lot of those things. The one that stands out in my mind is after the Milwaukee Bucks. Of course, I'm going to make a sports reference on here.
Please do.
After the Miami Heat knocked out the Milwaukee Bucks in the playoffs, There was that one interview where Giannis Antetokounmpo was asked if the season felt like a failure because they didn't win the championship. And he had a really poignant response that, it came from a frustrating place, but it was a really good lesson. And the amount of people I saw who were reposting the video there, who were like 3 lessons from Giannis's interview that apply to your business. There was so much of that. So you still really get that feeling as well too. So I feel like that's an advantage for LinkedIn on top of everything else I mentioned as well.
Yeah, there's a little bit of pop culture and sports and things happening over there. And I know they still show trending headlines.
Mhm.
And another feature I know that has been taking off, and again, speaking of organic reach that has been working well for people, is their newsletter feature. I haven't published too many newsletters in there, but I've published, I think, 2 total, and I have over 1,000 subscribers just organically through LinkedIn. And to generate 1,000 subscribers manually with signups and lead magnets and all of these things, that could take a really long time. So LinkedIn is just spreading the love. It just wants to get your stuff
Yeah.
seen. So
Yeah.
gotta love it.
They've got some great features there. And yeah, I mean, all your connections become a built-in newsletter audience.
Mm-hmm.
And when you publish on there, it gives those subscribers a LinkedIn notification and an email. So I mean, you're talking about trying to get people to open your content and make sure they find it. They've got it in 2 different places and they can open it where they want to.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, just all around, there's a lot of good to explore there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I know there are so many people that have thought about starting a newsletter, or it's on their list, and it's a good way to just get writing and to start. Yeah,
Online.
I know you love to write, and I've read some of your stuff, some of your articles. In
Yeah.
fact, that article you wrote a year or 2 ago about memes, I actually share with my students
Yeah.
on a semester basis. It's just a part of their reading. So keep writing stuff because
Well,
I will
thank you.
keep
Appreciate
sharing.
that. Yeah.
Of course. So let's talk about some don'ts on LinkedIn. Maybe there are some caveats or things that we need to consider with this type of platform. Are there any don'ts or tips that you would share about how to optimize your experience or your profile?
Yeah, I think my coworker Claire, who's kind of our LinkedIn savant, she's like probably a micro HR influencer as well, I would say too. She always says connect, post, and engage intentionally. With that in mind, kind of the lesson is don't necessarily just go liking and commenting on everything that you find and everything that you enjoy, because that stuff gets pulled into your connections feeds. Those engagements like show up on your profile, like in your activity feed.
Mm-hmm.
So there's some value to being really cognizant of what you're choosing to engage with, what you're choosing to comment on, what you're choosing to repost, things like that. Which kind of goes into my next point too, of you don't have to post too often. Like if you're posting 2 or 3 times a day on LinkedIn and you're not getting engagement, like you probably should be doing something differently. But there are also some people who are larger influencers who post twice a day and they still get great numbers because their content is regular and the LinkedIn algorithm understands how to process it and show it and things like that. The way I've kind of like started handling that with my personal content is that I can kind of notice like an engagement decay, like kind of like throughout the first 24 to 48 hours.
Mm-hmm.
I can kind of see when there's a curve of, hey, this is getting like really good engagement. It's really picking up. And I can start to see when things are starting to tail off. And then that's the point where I think about, hey, like maybe now it's time to introduce another post and things like that. So I'm probably posting on there, anywhere from 2 to 4 times a week, but I really try to space everything out too.
Yeah.
So, don't post too often. The other thing too, like don't be trying to share things that are outside your expertise. Like obviously your LinkedIn profile is tied to your work experience. So I mean, you talk about, other platforms where people might be able to just share a bunch of like trending knowledge and, whether it's crypto or AI or marketing or growth hacking or anything like that. Like people can grow an audience when maybe they don't necessarily have that expertise.
Mm-hmm.
It's pretty hard to do that on LinkedIn where people can see all your roles and hey, have you actually done the work? But that said, people who have built up audiences well on other platforms and come into LinkedIn like pretty, perform pretty well. So
Yeah. No, those are all great tips aside from just, optimizing your profile, writing a great bio, and just helping people get to know you a little bit better. I think it goes without saying. So,
Yeah. And that was my other don't too. Don't be posting without a optimized profile that's got your experience and a little bit about you and things like that.
yeah. And why not put something a little bit more personal for your tagline that people see? I also saw recently, it might be over the past few months, I'm not sure when they introduced it, but LinkedIn also lets you have a link on your profile now. So if you want to direct people to your YouTube channel that you're trying to grow or your newsletter, I mean, you can really convert some of their great audience and organic reach to those other platforms if you need to.
Exactly.
So
Exactly.
awesome. Well, is there anything else you would like to add about your beloved LinkedIn? Actually, I have one more question. Speaking of that,
Yes.
do you think, I don't know if you've tried it yet, but do you have any thoughts about LinkedIn Premium and if that is worth it in your opinion? I mean, you've been getting so much out of it as is. Do you have a premium
Yeah.
profile?
I don't have a premium. I know a lot of people who do. Most of the people I know who have LinkedIn Premium are using it for like LinkedIn Recruiter or LinkedIn Sales
Yeah.
Navigator or things like that as well. There's some more advanced analytics you can get within there as far as like who's viewing your profile, who's clicking out to that link, like you mentioned, if you wanted to push LinkedIn profile viewers to a YouTube page or something like that,
Mhm.
you could get a little bit more in depth with that as well. I can't say I know for sure if it helps with, with organic reach or anything like that. But LinkedIn also has a creator mode that you don't have to pay for like you do with LinkedIn
Right.
Premium. And that changes the default function on your profile from connect to follow. It shows like 5 hashtags of topics you talk about. And I haven't really measured this, but I have a hunch that if you're doing posts regularly with those hashtags that you mentioned on your creator profile, that it gives a bigger boost to those types of posts in terms of reach and stuff like that. So still in the early days trying to figure that out. But I'll see how that goes in May because I'm talking about Mental Health Awareness Month and using hashtag mental health a lot. And that's one of the ones that's in my creator profile. So we'll see how that goes. But long story short, I mean, I think everything's worth trying just to see if it works. But yeah, I can't say much more than that.
Gotcha. Well, I will be following along throughout the month, especially those types of posts. I look forward to seeing them. And now you've inspired me. I actually have a few LinkedIn notifications to catch up on and to jump back in, but it seems like it's a no-brainer. I mean, it's a lower lift and the organic reach is there. It's like you're getting a lot
Mhm.
more for your time and your energy. It's just you're being rewarded for what you put into it. It's not necessarily a lot. So, and for busy
Exactly.
professionals on LinkedIn or people who are job seeking, I'm sure that's music to their ears. So,
Mhm.
yeah.
Been really
Anything
enjoying it.
else?
Yeah. I think I've really enjoyed that a lot of marketing people who I've kind of started following on Twitter over the past 5 years are finding their way onto LinkedIn now. Yeah, I think it's just a really fun platform to try. Curious to see how people enjoy it.
Yeah. And happy birthday, LinkedIn. This wasn't even planned, but we will
Yeah.
be celebrating 20 years with this episode. So, yeah. Oh, and people can go follow you on LinkedIn. I will put a link to your profile in the
Yeah.
description. And yeah, I want to thank you again for your time today, Joe. Thank you so much.
Yeah, this was great. Thanks so much, Brian.
If you're a fan of this podcast, be sure to subscribe, or better yet, leave a review. For marketing wisdom with a pop culture twist sent straight to your inbox, sign up for my newsletter at briannefleming.com/newsletter, or find me on Twitter at Brianne2K. As always, thanks for listening.